I gave her my number because now I'm a sober man in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know how to treat women, and I'm very careful because of great sponsorship. I told my wife now what's going on and everything. She said, that's fantastic. And so I gave her my number, told her I needed to talk to her if she wished. She called me. I started making amends. And she said, Gino, stop. And this nails me to the T, a very short statement. Gino, you were a great guy. You just drank too much.
It's pretty bright, huh, that one?
Really, that one got really bright. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Plus, my eyes get a little dried out with the fan. I've been noticing.
Oh. Gino,
Yes, sir.
how's it going? Push your mic just a little bit closer.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Great day. Great day to carry a message of hope. And with weight and depth, I get charged up.
Yeah. So,
How long you got sober, Gino?
Next month on the 21st, I will have 32 years.
Wow. 32 years.
Grace of God.
can you turn him up a little bit, or he's maxed out? Actually, we got to bring it up higher on his.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yeah,
Very
that's
good.
very good.
Nice. He's got a deep voice.
Yeah. It's weird because deep voices, the further you get away,
Yeah.
like mine, you could still kind of hear it, right? Uh-oh. That's not good. Did you fix it?
No.
Deep voices though, like in my car, like Shane's voice, your voice, when I have to turn the bass down because otherwise
breaker 49. Breaker
it's
49.
too loud. So how long you got do you what
32.
program do you go to? Are you like a AA or NA guy?
It's combination. It's interesting when NA was not my flavor. I've spoke at CA, I spoke at HA and NA, and the AA program, it was calmer, was more involved. And when I got a working knowledge of the big book and showed me the weight and depth of it, it specifically says in there in 3 different places about drugs.
Yeah.
Back in the day, my first grant sponsor was Dr. Paul, whose story is in the big book.
Wow.
And that's the only one they changed, but they would never take it out. And it used to be called Dr. Alcoholic Addict. Now, they changed that about 10 years ago, and now it's called Acceptance is the Key. But in his story, in the book, is all about intravenous shooting and high-powered sedatives like Bell and them. And so I started to realize that it just was the same. And it's like with, I don't want to use names, it's some of my guys that I got early on that were career criminals wanted to go to NA. And I told them, I said, you can do that, but I want you coming to Alcoholics Anonymous for 6 weeks. If you don't like it, and that's your flavor, then go ahead and go.
Right.
And then, in fact, when I was listening to Pete's podcast, he even mentioned it, and you brought it up, and I knew this to be true. The NA meeting down at the harbor was drugs being sold, and I knew at this point that there were undercover officers, which kind of sucked.
No, I remember that.
Posing as addicts there so that they would mingle and they could get to the guy.
Right.
And I let them know that, these guys, like, I don't want you going there. If you want to go to a different one. But anyhow, Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where NA got their 12 steps too. and many other programs, you know.
Yeah, the only reason I asked is because I was going to say clean versus sober or sober versus clean, and I wanted to make sure I had the right verbiage when I'm talking to my guest.
Right. Anything from the neck up that affects me. So,
cool.
know, there it is right there. So there's some sticklers in the program, some old timers that we get into discussions about.
You know what though? You have enough time that you can really get into that discussion with people. When you say an old timer, how many years are you talking?
40 years, 50 years, somewhere in there. You know, by that they were back when they were doing the steps in stone. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it's funny you brought that up, that verbiage, because I kind of cringe when this young kid or somebody comes up or they mention me in a meeting and they say this old timer Gino. I don't feel like that at all.
Right.
I still feel new, and I hope I never stop feeling new. I don't want to be the guy in the back. You know, I want to be on the front.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of that, and I just love it. You know, these guys that I get a chance to sponsor, they think that I help them more than they help me. But it's the other way around. You know, like every year at my birthday, next month, I always remember my share is to always thank them because they've given me the best gift possible. And that's one man giving another man the gift of purpose. Because I never had a purpose before. Nobody wanted what I had.
Right.
Unless I had the bag or I had money or,
Right.
you know, and that's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
You know? So
I agree with that completely. You know, I go so far back in I was a Narcotics Anonymous guy. I have worked the steps from both programs, from the newer, because when I came into Narcotics Anonymous, there was no literature. I mean, they had the basic text, but there was none in the I forget what their 12 and 12 is called. It's called something else. But they had that. But I was my first meetings. This is in 1997. Was the Harbor meeting, and we had the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in the front,
Right.
and in the back. We walked all the way to the back when they still liked us. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean back then it was a solid meeting. There was guys like Pat Whitty before he relapsed.
I know Pat.
Yeah.
Or knew him.
Yeah.
He passed, but yeah.
His wife Lorianne.
Yep.
This guy Greg. There was a guy named Gino that was my house manager. Because I actually ended up going through the Wits Inn in 1997.
Right over there in Capitol Beach.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yep.
Pat and Larry, yeah.
Yeah.
I did a lot of meetings with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat was a big NA guy.
Yeah.
Carried a friggin' solid message.
He really did.
Yeah.
He relapsed when I was in treatment. They sent him away. I still run into Lorianne all the time.
Yeah.
I was just like a couple months ago, just down at Flame Broiler in San Juan, and there she was, just sitting out front. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" They gave me my first job in recovery. That's why all of this exists.
Nice.
Yeah. So the podcast, Hope by the Sea, the Infinity Group, all of this exists because they gave a 24-year-old drug addict a chance to drive a van for them.
That's impressive.
Right?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Did there end up being any dents or anything?
In the van?
Yeah.
Probably.
Sorry.
I mean, back then things were so different, you know.
Yeah.
Just the whole industry itself, meetings were different.
They only had that one detox place that, God, it was filthy too. What was it called?
I forget what it's called.
Capitol Beach.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that ended up being one of the, we were talking before about a meeting we started that was part of Mainstream.
Yeah.
That was one of the houses on Las Palmas and the Dolores house.
Yeah.
And me and Billy started going over every other week to each house, getting the guys right out of the chute. And it was just freaking powerful.
Yeah.
I loved it. Smoke-filled, dirty, filthy, throwaway couches.
Yeah.
These guys. and it was interesting to say the least, but it was powerful, just so powerful. There's only like 4 guys left from the hundreds of guys that we talked to carry the message. The rest
Right.
are dead or back inside doing life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one of them is one that was on your podcast.
Yeah,
And you know what a miracle that man is.
I do.
And another guy, Oscar, and a few other guys. And he did not know how to live life outside of there.
Yeah.
And we just coaxed them, and gave them hope.
What? How did let's go back before you got into recovery. What was life like for you?
It's like the old saying, life was good, then it was life with problems, and then it was just problems. Brought up Italian Catholic. My grandparents, like a lot of people's, came over here from Sicily. My dad met my mom. She's part Indian and Irish, so you got the mixture of Irish, Italian, and Pierce Indian. So when I was drinking, it's one of those guys that is loud, likes to dance, and I want to fight guy. None of that has anything to do with who I was or what happened. You had a great upbringing, just really good. And it's probably 95% of the people I hear that share, it's like, we wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
That's the deal. I went to a Catholic school. My dad worked his butt off to put the 3 of us, and then the 4th one came along in Catholic school. And then I go into junior high, and I don't know anybody because I have been going to Catholic school, and they couldn't afford high school. Got into some trouble there. And I don't think that the drinking came when I started being involved in sports, and the other guys had already been doing that, and they had an initiation for me, and they said one of my buddies had kind of like, he lived with his parents. We were like 16, but he had an upstairs room with a refrigerator that was huge, and parents couldn't hear, so we went up there, and they go, bring what you like to drink. I'd never drank anything. And so I bring Boone's Farm, back in the day.
Yeah. Was it Strawberry Hill?
Yeah, exactly. It was. It was 2 bottles.
Yeah.
And it took me 4 hours to be able to talk somebody in to get it for me.
Yeah.
And so they said, you're going to drink this much. And they marked the bottle. And then you're going to do 50 sit-ups. Then you're going to drink this much and do 50 sit-ups. So we get to about 200 sit-ups, and I'm dying. I'm just this short, fat little kid. And I couldn't do anymore. And they go, okay, I'll tell you what, you're going to do 10 more and do them real slow. It's going to really hurt. And then after that, you'll be done. And I'm ready to throw up. So I get to 8 or 9. And so I finally get to 10. One guy I had to keep my eyes closed. This guy came around in front of me and pulled his pants down backwards. And so when I came up the 10th time, my face was right in his, what. And I immediately threw up. They laughed. They ran out. And I stumbled home. And that was my first experience. I get to school on Monday, and I'm walking through the hall, and I see these people around my locker, and they're all laughing. They go, here he comes, here he comes. And I'm like, nobody even really knows me. And I get to my locker, and they had taken a picture, and somebody was in Photoshop, and they blew it up, and they stuck it on my locker of me with my face in this guy's bottom.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But what was funny? The cheerleaders are now talking to me, even though they're laughing at me.
Right.
A lot of guys are fist bumping me. Way to go, Gino! And you're one of the. I felt part of the guy. I was willing to do whatever it took. And as sick as that sounds, that was my first experience with it, and I hated it. And so, anyhow, I got pretty good. And water polo and basketball and things like that. And surfing, I started to surf and I got good at that. So I dropped out of the sports deal because in those days, we were one of the first schools down in Anaheim, except for a Servite boys' school, where you had to shave your head. And this is before it was popular. You know, you had to shave your head to go out for sports. You have to get that up. And the seniors would chase you down and take you in with the 000. And I mean, totally all the way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to go through that again. I said, nah, I'm done. I was good, but I was not going to be first string. And it was like, there's no sense. I don't want to be on the bench anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, started hanging around with a bunch of my guys, and we were all surfers and cutting school, started to lie, filling out, you know, slips with my dad's name on it, excuses, and I got caught. And my dad was this short little Italian guy, God bless him. Never heard him say a cuss word in his life, but when he got angry, you knew it. And he came down there and they opened up this file. All these things come out. And he looks down at it and he goes, those aren't my signatures. So back in the day, it was the big paddle.
Yeah.
I had my choice to be suspended, and my folks wanted me to go to school. I was barely hanging in there grade-wise, and so I took the paddle, and this guy was the friggin' gymnastics coach, and he was a big dude. And, man, he let that thing fly, and I could not feel my ass. It was numb.
Yeah.
And now they had girls in the office there that were high school girls that I knew. That was part of one of their classes. They helped out. And I'm not crying. Same thing that you guys have heard. There's no crying, you know, tough it up. You're the guy. Not in my family. And so I had one more coming, and he friggin' unloaded on me. I mean, it was black and blue. So that was my first experience with having some problems with authority.
Yeah.
And so barely graduated. I had to go to summer school twice. While all my buddies went to the beach, I had to go to summer school, but it worked out well. God had plans because I graduated at 17, halfway through, because I had caught up and had all these extra credits. So now I was free, and started on my journey of addiction. Started pretty young. I was on my own. My dad got really sick. At 52, they took his driver's license, which killed him. And he had diabetes. He had a stroke. He had a lot of stuff. And so the parents said, you know, you need to go. He's come from the hospital, and he's got to have complete quiet. Well, what I heard was not that. What I heard was, you're kicking me out. And I was scared for the first time. I didn't know how to cook meals or do all that stuff. So I'm out early. So it helped me grow up really quick, and made some big mistakes. Got a girl pregnant. And I remember she was going to get an abortion. And I remember the waves were really good that day. And this is the kind of piece of, you know what I was. It was like, do you want me to go with you? No, you know, it shouldn't even have been a question. You show up as the man.
Right.
And I was hoping she'd say no so I could go surfing. I had such a spiritual malady inside of me, you know, oh well, whew, I almost had a kid. She was on my men's list. Watch this. This is how God works in my life. 35 years rolls by, and I couldn't find her. And through social media, she found me. And there was 2 women still left on my amends list, and she was one of them. just a sweetheart, a great woman until I got a hold of her at the end. And she, I gave her my number because now I'm a sober man in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know how to treat women, and I'm very careful because of great sponsorship. I told my wife now what's going on and everything. She said, that's fantastic. And so I gave her my number, told her I needed to talk to her if she wished. She called me. I started making amends. And she said, Gino, stop. And this nails me to the T, a very short statement. Gino, you were a great guy. You just drank too much. And she said, I know about the amends process. My sister was in AA. She had a year. New Year's Eve, she went out. I know about it. You're forgiven. Now, this is a woman, when I started getting into the dope field, that this guy, my partner, had given me a gun. I said, what do you give me this for? He goes, you might need it sometime. So I go, okay. So I put the clip in, looking at it and holding it and everything. I put it in my top drawer. And one night she was over, and I'm high, and I'm drunk, and she's in bed like a normal person, normal woman is, and she's reading a book, and I get it out and start playing around with it. She goes, oh my God, what do you have that for? And I said, just for protection in case. She goes, you're not that guy. I said, well, I need to have it. And I pointed it at her, and she freaked out. She goes, don't do that, don't do that. And I was going to pull the trigger because I knew the clip was out of it. So I moved it about 6 inches, and I went like this. I pulled the trigger, it blew a hole through the wall.
Jesus.
There was one bullet still. I didn't know. Yeah, I wasn't experienced in this, and I'm drunk.
Right.
I could have killed her. Cops come. I'm spraying everything. I put a picture frame over. They don't know. They're just looking around the apartment complex.
Yeah.
One more time, God said, I got some work for you to do. You're going to skate. So in the amends process, you don't bring up more hurt and pain. I didn't say to her, will you forgive me that I didn't go with you for the abort? You don't do that because who knows how it's affected her.
Right.
But fast forward, I told her, if there's ever anything, we had a conversation, anything I can do for you or anybody in the field of recovery, do not hesitate to give my phone number. So I get this phone call from a gentleman named Bruce, and he's the president of the Woody Car Club. And they do 2 shows a year, one in Oceanside and one in Dana Point. And he says, hey, Vicky gave me your number. That was her name. And he said, we used a recovery home to help us load the trucks, unload the trucks, set it up in October. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They did theirs in the summertime. So he said, I was wondering if you could help with that. And I said, absolutely, I'm on it. I'll get the guys. And so it was really neat. And she came down with her new boyfriend and came down from Bueno Park, where she lived, to just give me a hug and thank me. I haven't seen her in 35 years, but because of that, I was able to help them. And then he saw that a couple of us were wearing these shirts that say Recover You. And that is 2 of my sponsors. He started a nonprofit, and it's called Recover You. And he asked about it. He goes, when we have our next meeting, we're going to talk about this. We'd like to donate. And I said, you don't have to do that. We're doing it for free. And he knew that we were all in recovery. And it was cute. He was so worried. He goes, well, we've got some of the gifts they're giving away for the prizes or cases of wine. I said, dude, no, don't worry about it. But thanks, because we were having to unload that. So it just came full circle. It was neat. You never know what God's got planned for your life. But on that note, where I could have killed her. I am a pen pal to a guy who's doing life. And lifers are getting out now too, by the way.
Yes, they are.
So friggin' crowded. There's a guy, I won't use his name, and he's been in there 27 years. He's 17 years sober. He's done the steps. And as he got more comfortable with me, he started releasing more information. And what happened, and it could have been me easily, he was drunk. His brother-in-law, or his brother was drunk. His wife was drunk. They're all home, blah, blah, blah. Gets into an argument with the brother. Fisticuffs fly. He's a little bigger. The brother runs into this room and locks the door. So he's pounding on the door, pounding on the door. So he gets to the closet and he pulls out his shotgun. And he says, open the door, I'm going to blow it off. You know, come out here, you little weenie. And the guy wouldn't do anything. So he turns the shotgun around and slams it on the door. And his wife standing behind him, and it went off and killed her.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. Like they say, seconds and inches. If she wasn't behind him, actually, if he wasn't drunk, this never would happen.
Right.
His life was over. And he's obviously gotten in some trouble there because he should have been out by now.
Yeah, that's makes me think of that movie, Shot Caller, where the guy he was just a corporate guy that was drinking with his buddy and his wife and his buddy's wife, and they leave the bar and they drive and they hit a car, and his buddy died in the car, and he got like, you know, now it's different. When we all get a driver's license in California, you sign that it's 15 to life if you kill somebody in a vehicle and you've been drinking, and it's no longer vehicular manslaughter. It's a type of murder. I forget which one.
Right.
But his case, he ended up getting like 5 years, right? But while he was in there, he ended up having to put in some work, and he got another 5 years or whatever.
The brand.
Yeah.
That just came up last night after one of my meetings. They have made a comeback, and they've gathered all of them together now. Penny, the Nazi lowriders, the skinheads in the last few years, and now they've chopped up the into areas, and that's as far as I can go. But there's some serious stuff going on, and it's real, and it's another life. And what happens is, and it's so friggin' sad, is like these youngsters want to be one of the crew. They have no clue.
Right.
And they have them putting the work in out here or in there. And they have no idea that if they do what they're told to do, it's either them, you either do this, or you're going to have it happen. And it's just a revolving circle.
Right.
So maybe the guy's got 4 years, or maybe he's getting ready to be paroled, and they're saying, no, man, because they don't want him to go.
Right.
I had one of my sponsee's wives back in the day. He's dead, but when he was sober, she told him she got in a big fight. He calls me on the phone. She goes, you know what? She kept saying, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay. And he goes, what are you talking about? She said, well, you must be gay because you like to sleep with the guys and take showers with them in the joint. So why don't you just go back? It's just like, well. She goes, what's wrong with me? And she was drop dead gorgeous. I go, she's right. What's the deal?
Yeah.
You know? And he goes,
Right.
it's the lifestyle. I said, well, until you change the lifestyle and find your higher power, it's never going to change for you. And it's sad. It's a vicious circle. But as we know, there's some powerful people, and I'm involved with them in sobriety.
Right.
They put the work in here. You know, and if they don't want to put the work in, then I tell them they need to find someone else. They can still call me and talk to me, and I love them and everything, but I don't want to see you die. I've had 6 guys die. 2 hangings, razor blade in the bathtub, railroad crossing, suicide. These are all suicides. Another guy ended up cold on the beach down North Beach about 3 years ago. And the last one was a guy who worked at that recovery place in San Clemente, the Detox. And he was loved by a lot of people. Neat man. And he'd get 7 years and go out. And he had another, and he started, and I knew something was up. I could just feel it. And he wouldn't cop to it. And so I didn't push it. And he got in depression, and we got him some help. And anyhow, he sat in his garage, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes because there were cigarette butts and ashes and 2-pack all around him, and took the gun and put it in his mouth and blew his head off. And I was talking to a gentleman out in the hallway about he's involved with veterans.
Yeah.
One of my real good friends, he's older than me, obviously. He was in Vietnam and as a youngster, and then Desert Storm, very decorated guy. He actually went over there. I couldn't. I had something going on. I could not do it. But the family was coming to identify the body, and he did not want them to see. So he went over there and cleaned the brains up, and it threw him back into PTSD. And he knew there was a possibility of that, but his strength in the program and being a service outweighed that. And it took him a while to get back on track.
Yeah. But he didn't drink.
No. He's got like 40-some years. He's a good man. Good.
That, I mean, that's the, that's the real deal, though. You know, we have to learn how to walk through whatever we need to walk through to get to the other side. I mean, it's really sad though, when for a situation like that, it's, there's so many people that suffer from mental health issues, and and there's always been this, even in the recovery community, there's a stigma behind the mental health. Not, I mean, it's getting better, but it's like, it's hard for somebody who's really depressed to reach out, especially, and we're men in this room right now, but for a man to ask for help when he's hurting like that, he want to pull himself out of it, and you don't want to admit that, you want to, that you're thinking about sticking a gun to your head.
Yep. It's called the vultures on the headboards, and they wake up in the morning, and I'm a testament to that. I'm on antidepressants right now. It's funny you said that. And my story's an open book. Yeah. Anybody can use whatever I say, and I'm not afraid to say anything just because I'm human.
Right.
And those emotions is what made me drink and get involved in the drug trade. And what happened was, it's just started very just small, and the thoughts. And I know that that's the dark one.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't put thoughts in your head like, I'm not good enough, I don't make enough money, I don't look good enough. His is all grace and mercy and love and kindness and second, third, and fourth chances, and hope. And through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the part in the big book is, it talks about it. It says, sometimes we need to seek outside help. And I talked to my sponsor, and a gentleman he sponsored, I knew him. And he's a doctor, I won't use his name, and he does the drugs for SCRC, medication-wise, and some other stuff. Really great guy named, no, I'm not. And he came and did a physical, and we talked, and he goes, nobody should live like this. Let's start. It took a couple of months to get the two right.
Right.
And it was like somebody opened the door and the friggin' light came in. It was like that. But I remember sharing at my home group that I go to on Monday. It's 150 to 200 men strong, versed for the new man. Probably 75 to 100 of those guys are new. We get a lot of treatment, man. We just love on these guys. Nice. And they loved coming to this meeting. Good honesty, well done, no profanity, because we tell them profanity is not a sign of spiritual growth. And I'm actually the language monitor there. So, hey, there's only 2 words, and it's the F word and the GD word. The rest, okay. But I remember I just put my hand up, and I don't know why, and I shared, and I was sobbing, just saying, I've been depressed. I have not wanted to come here. I don't want to be in AA anymore. I don't think about drinking or using drugs, but I have thought about taking my life. And I broke down. I said, if anybody is in this spot or has had this, talk to me after the meeting. And I got friggin' just jumped. Bunch of guys. One guy had been suffering. He's a therapist in your type of business.
Yeah.
And he said, I've been suffering for 10 years. And we talked, we exchanged phone numbers. I made new friends, new contacts. But I had sober legs. The gentleman I told you that put the gun in his head and pulled the trigger, that was his favorite saying. And I stole it from him. You know, the rule in AA is you get to use it twice and give that person credit, and then after that, it's yours.
Yeah, the third time it's yours.
Yeah.
That's I live by that rule.
Yeah, so I had sober legs. I knew I needed to go, and my wife stayed, you know, close to me, and just we're going to get through this together. And you know, real good woman in the program, 18 years, solid, hardworking, beautiful. Sometimes I just look at her and tell her, I go, what are you doing with me? You know, and she goes, I feel the same way. But first one didn't work out. But yeah, I owe so much to the program. It's unbelievable. I never thought I'd experience a high when I had the best time when I was using and drinking, and that I could match that. And it has gone so far over that.
Far exceeds.
It's a power. And I do a meeting on Tuesday night, and it's called The Bridge. And it's right over here at the church I attend, Capo Beach Church.
I've been there. Yeah.
About 120 now. It's up to 120, something like that. It started out small after COVID and built.
Oh. I went pre-COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's probably like 50 people there at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we have the prayer rugs.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, there's a bunch of, we call each other prayer warriors. And we're there as the band's just blowing it away. And people will come over, and probably 50% of the men or women that I get the opportunity to pray on start sobbing. Just break. And it's because the Holy Spirit is over those rugs. They've been there for 40 years.
Yeah.
Where people have brought their tears and their fears and don't know. The meeting's open to any addiction. There's people that identify as both, like I identify in that meeting as I'm dually addicted. In my men's meetings, I stay with, you know, I'm an alcoholic. It's an alcoholics closed meeting.
Right.
And we don't put the person down that shares and says he's an addict, because the guys in the van think it's funny and they don't tell him. And, you know, we have
the brand new guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. I'm glad you guys don't do that.
No, we have two singleness of purpose guys. That's their commitments. And it's in the readings. It's like, it's a closed meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you feel the need to identify as an addict, we have two singleness of purpose guys, and then they name their names, they raise their hands, and they said that we'll talk to you outside, explain it to you, and maybe find a meeting of a better fit. So and then usually they come back in and go, Danny, alcohol. You know, everybody goes, yeah, the whole room friggin' applauds. So
yeah, because
they don't know.
They don't know, and sometimes if you explain to somebody that you know, alcoholism. I I hate to. I mean, I love to say this. It's the same thing as addiction.
Yeah,
it's because it has the ism has nothing to do with the substance.
Mm-mm.
We all suffered with this thing between our ears before we even ever picked up a substance.
Right.
That was our solution.
Yeah. My sponsor told me that early on. He goes, you don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. I go, what are you talking about? I got 4 502s, a prison sentence. I did a couple of bullets, which is a year in the Orange County Jail. I've been in Lacey. I've been in Las Vegas Metro, which is a friggin' nice job. I like that.
What'd they feed you there?
I was up. It was a strange place, let me tell you. I've been in the tombs in LA. As a white guy, you do not want to go there. But I've been around.
Especially
Back in the day.
back in the day when you still had
80s.
your own shoes. I think you kept your wallet, right?
Yeah. A lot of things went down
Not
there.
safe
No.
for a white person.
No. You learn how to fight. I almost caused a race ride in Vegas, and I was out of my mind. I'd been up for 5 days doing the dancing powder, and just, I got into it with a guy.
Was the dancing powder meth or
No,
coke?
the white powder,
Yeah. Okay.
marching powder, the cocaine.
Yeah.
That's what my sentence was. I got arrested along with 32 other people. You know, they like to put it in the paper, biggest bust in Orange County in 32 years. There's my name. But my charge was aiding and abetting and aiding and abetting transporting of a dangerous drug, i.e. a kilo of cocaine. And I'll never forget, they had me at Anaheim PD when they arrested me that night. And I remember my mom and dad put the house up for bail. And I'm walking out in handcuffs, and I just see my dad's disgust. And my mom's crying, and I'm in the car, and it's dead silent. All of a sudden, he just says, "Just tell me why." And I said, "The money." I wasn't going to go into anything else. I mean, you could have come to me for money. And there was one time I embezzled $2,000 from my dad. I went in, stole one of his checks, piece of junk that I was. You know, we went to the same bank. We knew all the same people. We went to the same parish as the tellers. I knew they wouldn't question it. "Oh, hi, it's from your dad." "Yeah, okay, great." And then what had happened, it was a drug deal gone bad. The SWAT team came, and they're running up to my door, and I flushed everything. And all of a sudden, I hear the one guy say, "This is the wrong house." And they backed off, and off they all went. I went, "Oh, my God." And the guys I dealt with, they don't care how or what happened. And they had always been fronting me.
Yeah, you're paying it back.
I'm paying them. I couldn't get that money.
Yeah.
There's no way. And there was some serious consequences, mostly in my life.
Right.
And so I did that, got some again, and from somebody else, sold it real quick, paid these guys back, and not expecting, and then put the money back in the account. And he called me over, and he said, "You're changing your name." He said, "This is ridiculous, and you're going to get out of that bank and go somewhere else." And I just hurt him so bad.
Yeah.
And my mom came to every one of my lawyer's appointments. And when she decided to go into the first one with me, I go, "You know, you don't want to go in there." She goes, "No, I want to find out what happened." And I was like, "Oh my God, the gig's up." What I was doing. And he said, "You got to be honest with me. We're going to fight this, obviously, and we're going to drag it out for financial reasons for you." And I was working for the city. I had a good job, city of Anaheim in the Parks Department, and they stuck beside me because I was a good worker. I got that good work ethic from my dad. Another addiction was workaholism, which killed him. And in fact, he passed away when I was doing it. It was just ugly. I never got a chance. My biggest regret is I never got a chance to make amends to my dad. Mm. And he never saw a sober, clean breath from me.
Oh.
And an old timer in a meeting told me, I had about 2 years, he goes, "Take your chip and go up to the grave and bury it and tell him." And I sobbed till there were no more tears left, and talked to him and felt him. And it was just cleansing.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I know he's proud of me now.
Yeah.
You know, but it was a tough deal, you know. And I'm blaming everything on everybody else.
Right.
And so off I go 170 pounds, dripping wet, long blonde hair, but I had to get it cut. My lawyer told me, I'm heading into, they had said in there, they wanted me, if it was possible, to be close so my family could come see me. So they put in their Gino. Well, first they sent me to Wayside, and it took a little while, and they finally got back. So I'm in there. I'd done lots of time in county jail and Lacey when it was a mini max, and I think I know the rules. And 2 days in, there were 9 black gentlemen playing basketball. I needed another person, 5-on-5. I said, sure, I'll play.
Whoopsie.
I got knocked down. This one black guy told me, did you ask the white boys if he could play with us? And I go, no. He goes, you're going to be in for trouble. I said, hey, I don't have to ask anybody anything. Ugh. I was wondering why they were staring at me. They're sitting on the bench, and sure enough, went to take a shower, and these three guys showed up with tattoos in places I can't even pronounce, big dudes. And they came for me, and I knew it was happening. I go, you want some of this? I'm like, and they got it. And it broke my jaw. I was sucking through a straw for 6 to 8 weeks, and cracked my eardrum. And it was nuts. I had to learn what you do, what you don't do, and everything.
Is it shocking to you, Shane?
I'm just amazed the concept still of love with his mom and dad, and that he had family pushing him to get you better. Yeah. So he had some constants in his life that saved him, you know?
Yeah.
So no, not shocking at all that he ended up where he is now.
Right.
No, I was thinking about the getting beat up right now.
Oh, well, that's standard. No, I've watched the movies.
You
Yeah,
watched the movies.
I've seen the movies. You can't mix.
No. I went in at 170. I got out at 215 because I was on the weight pile.
Yeah,
with the
so you were,
boys.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of time, and even in your cell, workout time.
And they had weights back then.
Yeah.
They had the weights back then.
They
you
took them out in
could
1996, I think, or 7.
you could put others on and take others off, and shortly after that is when a guy got a hit put on anyhow during chow, and a guy, this big black gentleman, had stuffed a 25-pound weight, and you could carry it without looking like he was like struggling or limping or whatever. And he took that thing out and flung it like a frisbee and took half this guy's head off. The next day they had the welding crew out there, and they welded all the weights together. And so if you couldn't lift what was welded there, then you didn't get to use that like bench press or whatever. It was just freaking nuts.
They had 315.
Yeah,
they didn't even have 225,
No.
buddy. They went straight. If you couldn't bench 315, you weren't benching.
No one could bench that in jail.
Yes, they can.
No way.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Back in the day, guys used to come out of
Big,
prison
Huge.
like
boys.
Huge.
The food is the food is just right for putting on mass.
Yeah.
It's
Lot of
not meant
protein?
for bodybuilding.
No.
Mass.
Peanut
Mass
butter.
building.
And they would smuggle this. They would make peanut butter and honey sandwiches, and they would make 4 or 5 for each guy that was putting on that like that. I've seen guys grow. I mean, it was just unbelievable. You knew the guys that had been lifting for a while because you knew their story and you'd see them. And then, they didn't like the fact that they were getting so much bigger than the guards.
They were getting bigger than the guards.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys worked out too. Like a lot of the police. I know a lot of the gyms that they go and work out, and they have their own crew. That was another thing. I couldn't talk to them when I first got sober. I was scared. I was just always
like the police.
Yeah.
And
now, I remember one day in front of 7-Eleven, they were backed up car to car, and they were talking, having their coffee and stuff, and this one guy caught my eye, and I remembered him, and I went over and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he says, "How you doing, Gino?" I said, "I'm fabulous, man." I said, "I got 18 months sober. I'm done with that lifestyle." And he said, "Good, keep it up, man." And I said, "I just want to let you know, you guys, you do a good job, and
Right.
and you need to put people like me away sometimes to get that message. I never got, thinking I'm in Chino, that my boys would come see me, I'd get money in my books, my parents. I never got one visit, not from my family, not from anybody. The very last.
When you say your boys, you mean your friends, right?
So-called friends,
Right, but
the guys
like
I ran with.
not like kids.
No,
Yeah, no boys are coming to see you.
no, nobody. And in fact, it got so sad for this one guy. We called him Emotional Tom. He would cry like he'd be just standing there talking. He'd start crying. There was something wrong with him, and he was a big guy, and so nobody ever questioned him. They just we call him Emotional Tom. But he said, "I'm gonna have one of my homegirls write you. I'm worried. You get no mail. No one sees you and everything." But that's what needed to happen. I needed to really figure out where I went wrong. And my mom later on had said that was the hardest decision she had to make. Your dad couldn't because he was dying.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take it. And
Was this your last prison term?
yes, I got away again from the mercy of God, where that was my last prison term, but like I said, I went to AA, and I took a dirty 1-year trip. This is how much I paid attention, which was nothing, because what you put in is what you get out.
Right.
I kept hearing about getting a sponsor and steps, and I didn't work in any steps. I had no sponsor. And so I was going out still to clubs and stuff and have 2 drinks. That was my limit. And I don't know how I pulled that off. But anyhow, so I take my 1-year chip, and I'm all excited. And I go to the back of the room. There's this old man that slept on the couch there and locked the club down in Anaheim. And he said, "Man, congratulations. That's a long time without a drink." And I said, "Well, no, I've had some drinks." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've had 2 here, 2 there." I said, "I heard it was just about not getting drunk." And he goes, "Haven't you been listening to?" And I go, "No." He goes, "You have to give your chip back." I said, "I'm not giving my chip back. You know how hard I had to work for this?" And I just threw it at the secretary and walked out and didn't come back. So for 10 years, I picked up 2 more DUIs, and that's what I went back for, but not to the joint. So I'm at Lacey before it was a Mini Max, and we had the thing set up, and I was allowed to go out to work and come back in, change clothes, and then I was working graveyard at a warehouse, and I would go sleep during the day, and we had a thing, and I didn't even smoke pot. I didn't like it. So crosstops were big at that time. And I'd have it in a little baggie, and there was a flip on the back of the work boot, and I'd glue it shut. And then when I came in and changed into my jail uniform, the guy that was mopping the floor, it was all planned, was coming by with the mop in the bucket, and I'd take the balloon out, throw it in the water, and we wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't say anything. He'd go out to the yard, and there were the drains right there, and he'd dump the bucket of dirty water, and the little balloon would stay on top. And then he had eyesight with the guy that was sweeping the compound. He'd come by and sweep it up. Then he'd go over to the dumpster and dump the trash in there, and he did it on the end so the balloon would come out and fall on the ground. And then this guy would come by who ran the yard, Big Steve, they called him, big Mexican guy, funny guy. And so I was
a lot of planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of planning.
For one balloon.
The gentleman who was mopping the floors, he kept whining. In fact, they socked him up a few times, told him to shut up. His wife said he was going to leave him if he didn't get out. He goes, "You just can't get out. I've got 9 more months if I stay good."
Right.
And she said, "I can't wait that long, this and that." So anyhow, as they caught me, Deputy Elliott, I'll never forget that guy, short, freaking buff dude, threw me up against the wall. He goes, "Man, I thought we had this thing you were always cool with me. He goes, take your shoes off. And I knew it was up. They put you in a white jumpsuit because white stands out. There's no anything. Everybody's wearing blue. And they take you in a hole. And I'll never, in fact, I was talking to one of my guys about this last night. I'll never forget this. There's a big steel door. First, they strip you down, and it's all glass so everybody can see. And they humiliate you. They bend you over, have you lift up, your nutsack. They do that whole deal. And then when they open the door, there's this big cable and these sandbags. I don't know why I still picture that. And they open that door, and in you go, 3 one-man cells, and all you get is your boxers. That's it. No sheets, no pillowcase, no towel, no anything, because they don't want you to hang yourself. And there's a little chute there where they look in. It's called Suicide Watch. And when you get fed, they put the tray under the door. It's about that high. And if you have to use the bathroom, there's one toilet. And you just yell for the guard, and he comes. But so they were booking me on bringing narcotics into a jail facility, and they wanted 3 to 5. And I just told them that I got the boots from this guy that worked, which was true. That was true from the clothing exchange the day before. Somebody else was doing something in there. It wasn't me. Lie. That's my defense. Lie. No God. Catholic God I threw away. Because if he knew what I had been doing for years, just racking up women, just not being respectful, man, just not good. And I remember laying on that bunk that night in the dark. I had a low light, and I said, nobody knows I'm in here. Nobody knows I'm in here. And I told God, I said, if you get me out of this, I will never do this kind of behavior again. So the DA comes, talks to me. They said, okay, we're going to have a trial. You're not budging. We know you're lying. They send me to OC jail and put me in the 32-guy dorm. And I kept hearing these white guys getting socked up for leaving a little piece of pee on the seat. And I could hear it all night long. And it was too many of the Mexicans. There's no way. I just kept my mouth shut. I finally told the sergeant, I need to go to high power. He goes, can you hang up there? I said, yeah. He goes, you're going to be the only white guy. I said, that's okay. I can't take this. So I went up. First 5 cells are black gentlemen. The next 5 are all the Hispanics. And I'm in the last one. And I knew some of these guys from the street. I was fine. But one night, they woke me up and said, Gino, the sergeant is freaking calling your name. Roll it up. You're gone. And once they let you out at 3 in the morning, perfect. Like, what are you going to do on the street at 3?
Right.
And I just remember calling my drug-dealing girlfriend and saying, you better bring me something. And she goes, oh, I got some real good stuff. Before we're 15 minutes on the freeway, you're going to be higher than hell. And I'll bring a bottle of vodka. Forgot completely about that God and what I swore to him. And I kept on. And one night there was an overdose. And I just remember the paramedics as I was going out. I could see my heart. It felt like it was going to pound out of my chest. My dad had died while I was gone. And I just remember hearing, as I was going out, the paramedic saying to my girl, I don't know if we can bring him back. Or maybe he was talking to his partner. But anyhow, I'm here, so I didn't pass away. And the very next day, I was doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I could not stay clean and sober. There was no way. I could not say no. And that pretty much started my journey. And I know that God doesn't make deals with us, but it's the only word I could come up with when I explain it. He said, I'm going to let you live, but you're going to help as many men as you can before I take you home. And if you forget that and go back to doing what you're doing, I will take you, and you're not going to like where you're going. And I've never forgot that. And in fact, I have one right on here that says, don't ever forget. I don't want to forget my sobriety date, my wedding date, and my daughter's date of her birth. I don't want to forget. I don't want to be that guy that has time and forgets about how bad it was and how lucky and fortunate that I am to be a member and a good guy in sobriety and a good guy in society.
Right.
You know, I could cheat on my taxes. I work for myself. I could double book. I don't. An old timer told me once, Gino, I don't work the steps anymore. And I thought that was weird. He goes, the steps work me. And damn, if that hasn't happened for me. I know if I say something with the wrong tone of voice to someone behind the counter or something, I immediately know at that point I need to say, you know, I'm sorry. That was, rude. I know my voice was off kind or something like that. I apologize. Before it would take me weeks, I'd argue with my sponsor. Why do I have to go to this guy and tell him? How come I have to stand up at the meeting and say I'm sorry? He goes, this is what a man does in sobriety.
Right.
So, there's a peace in this room. I felt it when the doors were open. You're changing lives with what you're doing. This is your purpose, amongst the other things. I've heard your name over the years.
Yeah.
I've prayed for you, whether you don't know it because you don't know me.
Yeah.
But you've had some tough times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was nothing but love. Before it'd be like, that guy's a piece of crap. How come he can't get this? Isn't that? I know about this disease.
Yeah, and if it grabs you again, it's much harder than it had you before. I had, as I mentioned in the beginning, I started this recovery journey in December 28th of 1996, and I currently have 6 years clean, so that'll tell you my story.
Yeah,
pieces of it. Mm-hmm.
But your story isn't done yet.
It's not even close to.
You're like halfway through the book.
Yeah,
you've got so many more chapters.
Yeah, I don't and I don't regret like that. They do say one of the things that I love about AA is that we don't regret the past or close the door on it. Because I don't regret. I wouldn't be the man that I am. I wouldn't. I had to get knocked down so far, emotionally, spiritually,
physically.
That all of it was the when I climbed back out of that pit of hell this last time. It was. I was near death. And God wasn't done with me yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He knew, whether you know it or not, all of us. The first voice that you ever heard in your life was when your mother conceived you. God leaned down in her womb and whispered in your ear, Chad, I love you. I know what you're going to do to me and you. I will still love you, and I will never leave you.
Isn't that insane? Yeah, I got the chills when he said that.
That's cool.
And it wasn't the fan.
There's so many good men that are incarcerated in their mind, maybe not physically,
right.
But there's a lot of guys, like the guy I shared with you, that the accident that happened, good men that get that chance when they get out.
Yeah.
My one guy who did the podcast, you know his story?
Yeah. From
nothing.
Yeah.
Fighting the God stuff, and now, he's an amazing man.
Yeah.
And the gentleman who wrote this book, I want to give a shameless plug here really quick. and hopefully you use him. He's an amazing man. And what's really neat is right now at the same time we're doing this, they're at San Clemente High School, him and two of my other sponsees, carrying the message to the kids.
Nice.
Now, he's got to be careful what he says because his daughter goes to that school, and he asked her, and she said, Dad, I'm so proud of you for what you've done in your life and where you came from. I don't worry about me. And this is his testimony. That's actually, I think it's Pelican Bay with the Keys, and it's Finding Grace, and his name's Billy. I won't use his last name, Billy R. And it's impossible to be where this man is right now from where he came from.
Yeah.
And I would give you a copy, but this one's signed by him to me because I'm his sponsor, and I would not part with this. But these guys that I'm wrapped with, like one of them put it on the text today, the Sober Mafia. It's very, we will do anything for anybody at any time if we can help.
Yeah, I love that. The same thing here, man. You know, this podcast. So, you know, I've been you know, in the treatment industry for a long time. 22 years I've worked in the industry. I've been an owner of Hope by the Sea since 2002, so that's, you know, a little over 20 years. I've had relapses along the way. There's a lot of embarrassment and shame and guilt that came with that. I don't feel that way anymore. I'm not embarrassed. I'm actually very proud that I was able to put earmuffs on and blinders on and not listen to the people that hated on me and said whatever they said. Because, you know, people like a story like that, man. They like to see.
They love failure.
They like to see people fall.
Yeah.
And then they do whatever they do, which is fine. I used it. I used it. Actually, just kind of I went into the dark room and worked on Chad and worked on my career and worked on whatever. But I'm saying this because, you know, that's what I do for a living. But this podcast I don't do for a living. This podcast has become my purpose. I don't know if I said it on Pete's podcast, but Pete actually did the service for my my son-in-law, which it still fucks me up when I talk about it. And I'm on a mission. You know, fentanyl is killing everybody, and the reason why I bring up my career is in 18 years prior to fentanyl being the drug of choice of everybody that walks in this facility, it's either fentanyl or alcohol. That is the drugs, or both.
Yeah. The old saying is, you know, every glass of alcohol I drank is my connection's phone number the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And the new stuff now is, I'm sure you've heard about it. It started in the East Coast, went to the Midwest. Now it's in LA. Now they know it's fentanyl mixed with horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
50 times stronger.
And
that's it.
It's like it's if you do live, it's killing your skin.
Yeah, guys, they were saying like part of their skin falls off. It's horse tranquilizer. I mean,
do you know anything about horse tranquilizers being in
the for sure.
Veterinarian pharmaceutical industry?
Yes,
his family is in the veterinarian.
Did it quite a bit.
Oh,
yeah, did it
pharmaceutical
quite a bit.
Industry, and not here in America, but
right,
good stuff.
So you know, with that being said, you know, my son-in-law died from a pressed Percocet pill. You know, I won't stop doing this podcast until couple things. It's just not just one thing, but a couple things. Like until everybody in America hears my voice and they've heard Chad Carlson's voice.
There you go.
You know, and they've heard me talk about fentanyl, and they stand beside me so that I can sit up there in Congress, put on my nice little suit and tie, and go up there and sit up there. And I've got some other warriors that, you know, love to speak in public. I don't love to speak in public. This is easy for me because we're like
Yeah.
sitting here in a room. I don't even think about the fact that there's cameras in here or that anybody even listens to it.
Sure.
I listen to it.
God listens to it.
God listens to
And
it.
he's on your heart, and this is what he's put on your heart.
Yeah.
30 years ago, he had this plan. 40 years ago, 50 years,
Right.
whatever, how old you are. He's had this plan, and you stepped out of the way and let him bring the heat.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You can touch more people with what you're doing. And the more people you meet, this is an amazing man to me.
Yeah. We'll grab 'em.
Just what they're doing now is amazing. And my friend Danny, who had also, and he closed it down, but he still does it. He had it was called Stop Before You Start, and he's one of my guys.
We know Danny.
Yeah, Danny
Black
Murphy,
hair.
Yeah.
Tall guy.
Oh, yeah.
Had him in the office here with your mom.
good-looking guy.
Got into a little trouble that wasn't his fault. Back a year or two ago, there was some confusion. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's still working with kids, though.
There were a lot of people that wanted to jump in because they saw how it took off, and I can't go into it on air, but he still does this thing. He's the one who set this up at San Clemente. He does other high schools and stuff. And I sat next to a woman last night at the bridge meeting, and her son died 6 months ago. They got sober together, back and forth. Anyhow, after an AA meeting, somebody handed him a Percocet. And he had no self-defense because he didn't have a higher power. And he took the Percocet, and it was laced with fentanyl. He's dead. And she's having to deal with that. But she's doing it sober. And
Right.
it's that meeting's a great meeting. It's the best meeting I've ever been to in my life, besides Skid Row.
I agree. I love that meeting.
Should stop by
Is
sometime.
It's 12-step base, but it's not
Christian.
it's not an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting,
No,
correct?
it's a 12-step Christian meeting. Now, you don't have to believe in Christ. That's my Lord and Savior, and all my prayer warrior guys, the same thing. But we don't. We're really conscious about the person who just might have that thought, the mustard seed,
Right.
of searching.
Right.
And come, everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
I kind of cringe once in a while when I hear someone say sex addict or love addict, because that puts attention to them on that kind of deal. And, whoa. But they're welcome there. We try to talk to them and tell them there's meetings for that, but they're more than welcome to be there. We keep that place really safe.
Yeah.
It's a very safe, like Billy says. He runs that, and it's a very safe place to come. And a lot of times, if you can just get them to come to the rug, it changes their lives.
Yeah.
It's just, I go there on Tuesday as I'm driving down the coast in this beautiful area that we live, and I'm dead tired. And friggin' Lakers are on, or the Yankees are on. And I'm like, God, I could just stay home tonight. I go, no, because you know the feeling you're going to get. And on the way home, I'm not even driving. I'm just, God's got the wheel.
I see the Yankee hat.
Yeah.
Yankee fan, Laker fan.
I was born in New York, and my dad moved us out here. I didn't know this till later on in life, but he moved us out here when my dad was little. My grandfather owned an Italian delicatessen, and his job, this is during Al Capone's era, my grandfather, his job was they would have him bring, because he had the store and he had the product, the big bags of sugar, and they had to deliver them in his delivery truck like 2, 3 in the morning to the cellars, and then knock on the door, drop them, and leave. And then they were making moonshine. So a lot of the Goombas would come into the store. They'd smoke cigars in the back, talk business, this and that. And he told me a story one time. My grandma was stocking the shelves, and there were 2 guys talking about some guy that they had whacked the night before. They were in cement shoes in the river, and she dropped a can, and they came around. They go, "Okay, you didn't hear anything?" And she goes, "No, I didn't hear anything. I'm stocking the shelf." So I get all these stories, and waited till we were older. But my dad moved us away because he was afraid that the 3 of us boys. He moved us out here to California. We didn't know anybody except for a great uncle, and because he knew that lifestyle. And I know for a fact if I was front, I'd probably just fit right on in.
Oh, yeah.
And all those guys. I've got a picture at home. It's a black and white, and it's all the men standing there. And they'd come over on Sundays to play bocce ball because we had that lawn. And all the women are in the background standing on the porch because you didn't mix with the men. They made the food. The kids brought it out. And like my dad was a little out. And there's a picture, and my grandmother had put all the names on the back. And I did not know that Al Capone had a brother. And there he is. And he's standing right next to my grandfather. And I'm like, well, and if you look, it's like he's a dead ringer for Capone. So it was interesting. And I just found this out, when I was an older teenager, and it was brought to my attention. So I thanked him at the grave, too, for that, because it's not a lifestyle I would have wanted to go. You find things out about your parents. They did the best they could with what they had.
Right. I'm going to Italy in 2 weeks.
Oh, fantastic!
My first time.
Nice.
My family is of Italian descent as well.
Yeah.
Northern Italian. My mom is a Medici, so she's part of the Florence gang.
Oh wow. Okay.
If I can say it like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were bigger than a gang.
Yeah.
Back in my grandpa was Giovanni Leone de Medici.
Oh my God. I have a cousin named Giovanni. Very Italian name.
Yeah. His name was very, very Italian. He's the one that came over on the boat. And then my grandma, his wife, my grandma was very English. So I'm like, and my dad's a Danish, so I'm mostly Italian and Danish. My wife is very similar to you though. She's Italian and Irish. I don't think she has any Indian in her, but maybe. But
yeah.
her dad is just a full blood Italian. Irish from Brooklyn, and her mom is, and her mom is full blood Italian from Brooklyn. Both they're from the Bronx.
The Bronx?
The Bronx.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where my love for the Yankees came from. I've been out here so long that, I love the Lakers and can't stand the Celtics, that kind of rivalry.
Right.
And I've got a team, obviously the Yankees on the East Coast, and I've fallen in love also with the Angels here because it's close. We used to go when we moved to Anaheim. My dad worked there for a little bit too, and he couldn't have his job anymore, and so we'd get tickets and go to the ball game and watch them. And I mean, just unbelievable what Ohtani's doing, and everybody in the world wants him on their team.
Right.
But good, clean fun. We used to take 40, 50 guys out of our meeting and go. I'd buy tickets, and they would even, and we kept it anonymous, they'd even put it on the score. We'd like to thank the Rule 62 gentlemen that are here tonight. Just like it was
cool.
It was cool,
Yeah.
but boy, you should have seen the look of the people as they see this block of seats and no one's there, and all of a sudden they see these guys all coming down the aisles and then sitting in there like pulling their kids a little closer and telling the wife. By about the third inning, they realize that nobody's drinking.
Yeah.
We're just having fun. We're playing a quarters game. You put 50 cents in the cup. Guy hits a home run, no matter which team, it doesn't matter. That next guy next to you. Now, if there's not a home run for a while, you're starting to get $20, $30 in that cup. And so you have to be there when the guy hits a home run. If you have to go to the bathroom and the cup was supposed to go to you, it just goes to the next guy. So it was a lot of fun, and it never failed. Somebody would turn around, some dad, and go, what's the deal with you guys? You guys are laughing. You're making us laugh. We can hear the comments. And I said, we're just kind of like a church group, because I'm not going to say, who knows? I mean, this guy's been pounding beers the whole time, and he's getting loopy, and I'm not going to, I'm in AA. Can I help you?
We're from Alcoholics Anonymous. We're here to do a 12-step call on you.
I have an extra big book in my car. Which
I want to say this before we close out, man. I can see the beauty of recovery spewing from you when you speak. Like you're what Alcoholics Anonymous can do for people. And to me, like, you're the epitome of what alcoholics and no, nobody's perfect. But I love how, like, you're like, I might, you know,
That's what these guys need to know here that come, that they've made mistakes, but they are not a mistake.
right.
A lot of them have been told that for a while.
Yeah.
I heard that from my dad. What are you, stupid? What are you, stupid? What are you, stupid? You know, he didn't mean it to hurt me. It's the way he was brought up.
Right.
And, I want to close out. I'm sorry for interrupting and then you can.
No, that's all I wanted to say is that
Right.
it's just it's a beautiful thing to see that.
Amazing
And
thing.
to see and to see a tough looking man like you tear up.
Oh,
That's
yeah. It's amazing.
we're allowed to have emotions. We're allowed to have feelings.
I've wrapped my arms around so many of my guys that are done long stretches in the joint, tough men, and just sobbing, saying to me, I was never going to tell anybody that. And I'm talking, I can't say it, but I'm talking serious stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner. I'm glad, and your story is going to be able to help somebody else out when and if you choose to. But this is what happens in my life, in God's life, and in recovery. There's a bum, and he's behind a trash bin. He's got a needle hanging out of his arm. He's track marks everywhere, and he's drunker than hell, and he's ready to die. And God appears to him, and he says, "Hey, is there anything you want to ask me before I decide where you're going?" And he said, "Yeah, is there Alcoholics Anonymous in heaven?" He goes, "There sure is." And he says, "But I want to take you to an Alcoholics meeting in hell." So he grabs them, off they go, and they go to this place, and he can hear screaming and yelling and just everything. And it says Alcoholics Anonymous above the door, and they walk in. There's this huge pot of food just brimming over, and there's all these people sucked up in skin, look like Holocaust survivors, and they have these huge spoons taped to their arms, and they're trying to put the food in their mouth, and it's falling on the floor. There's food all over, but they're dying. He goes, "Let me take you to a meeting in Alcoholics Anonymous in heaven." And he takes them up there, and he can hear the sound of laughter and hope and crying and tears. And it says above the door, Alcoholics Anonymous. And he goes in there, same scenario, spoons, big spoons tied around their arms, and a big pot of food. And the difference is all they're doing is they're taking that big spoon and they're feeding the person next to them.
Mm.
And that's what AA has done for me. It's fed me spiritually, physically, financially. I'm just an average guy. I clean pools for a living, and I love it.
Mm.
I'm 66 years old, and I love it. I'm able to talk with a Bluetooth on to my guys during the day.
Yeah.
I'm able to pet the dogs. I'm able to talk to the customers that are miserable in these mansions I take care of.
Right.
And when and if the time ever comes, I can share something with them if there's a time, but I'm very anonymous with my program.
Yeah.
So I just love that story. There's Jesus Christ took me back. And this is how it works, is sometimes, you've heard when the teacher's ready, the student will appear. Sometimes when the student appears when the teacher is ready. And what happened with this gentleman was he kept saying, "Hey, what are you doing on Sunday? Why don't you come to church?" Me and him never pushed it. And so I started coming one time because he didn't push it on me. And I started coming, and then I became a believer again. I got rebaptized, and I found the God that I had left before, and now I'm a huge prayer warrior, and it's just amazing. So we never know. These guys do more for me than I can ever do for them. and I love them like they were my own sons. I mean, Pete calls me Goomba. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's called, and this guy calls me Pops. And I'm only a few years older than him, but he didn't ever really have a dad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you his story, but so he was able to come to me as I was a father, and he was a son. I was able to, tough love, and then so keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
You too.
moving mountains. This thing just goes out, and use some of those gentlemen if you choose to, because they have an amazing story.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you for
Appreciate it,
coming.
brother. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks.
All these guys.
Thank you.
He started doing this knuckle.
Yeah, Knuckles.
I don't know what
Yeah.
Finishes it off.
Oh, it was COVID.